I can see your screen in the chat or something with words.
Is there someone there in Enid? There may not be anyone in there. If not, we'll just share this. Um, we'll just go ahead and we'll share it where it's showing it.
Okay.
Like, I'll just send the videos to them. Okay, now okay, present. Okay,
All right.
you might have to speak loud.
Should I just do everyone that's in here? Do you guys want to help? Can I just stand? Is that okay?
Yeah.
To help them here. I'm gonna sit here and I'm just gonna talk to you guys because there's not a whole lot of people here, but that's all right. We're hoping that a lot of people in the future will hear this recording or watch the video. So am I good to?
Yep, go ahead.
Good to go? All right. So hello, everyone that could make it to the first writing workshop presentation, and everyone in Enid and Woodward, welcome. Faces I can't see, I do want to acknowledge that you're here. So thanks for being here. My name is Rader, and I am the career coach at the LASSO Center here at Northwestern. So I work with resume writing, cover letter writing, and helping students find jobs on campus. The LASSO Center is open to all students. So my students in Enid and Woodward, the LASSO Center has services that would be more than happy to help you guys as well if you guys ever reached out. So that being said, I'm so excited to kind of step away from the LASSO Center for this lunch period and do a lecture on my writing topic of choice, which is point of view. So what is the point of view and what will we be talking about today? Going into the objectives of what I'm going to be going over in this presentation, I plan on having you all understand the different types of point of view, also referred to as POV in writing. You're going to learn how POV influences the tone of your writing, meaning, and your reader connection. And then I'm also going to explore how to choose the best point of view for your writing. And of course, I had to include one of my favorite Ariana Grande songs, Point of View. Another way for you guys to identify and to practice point of view, a really good way to do that is through identifying it in songs and other movies that you guys like. So another reason why I wanted to include this song is because, again, a good way for you guys to practice and identify point of view outside of this lesson is in things like the music that you all listen to. All right, so raise your hand for me if you have a pretty good idea of what point of view is, or you have an idea kind of on how to use it. So a little bit, not quite as confident as I'd like, but we have a decent idea on point of view. So what is point of view? Point of view is basically the writer's way of deciding who is telling the story to whom. It is expressed through the author's use of pronouns, which reveals the narrator's position to the reader. So no matter what you are writing, whether it's a text, an email, if you're making a TikTok comment, you as the writer are establishing a point of view for your audience. So there are 4 common points of view. There are more points of view than that, but the ones that I'm going to touch on today are the 4 most common ones that you guys will see. So the different types of point of views offer unique advantages and limitations to understanding what we are reading. The 4 common points of view are first person, second person, third person, and third person omniscient. So in order for you guys to kind of get the big picture and to really take something away from this presentation, I want you guys to think of a time when you guys have been in class and you have had to write an essay and you've had a professor ask you to write your essay in the first person or in the third person. So what this presentation is going to do is it's going to help give you the information and the tools to make sure that when you are asked by your professors to write in a certain point of view, that you're writing it in the correct one. So again, when your professor is asking you to write, this needs to be in first person, this needs to be in third person, they are only referring to the point of view that they want you to write your essay in. And as I said, I'm going to get into the 4 common ones. All right, so starting with the first person point of view. First person is when the narrator is a character in the story who is telling it from his or her point of view. You will see pronouns such as I, we, my, and me, most commonly seen in the first person point of view. The benefits of using the first person is that it offers intimacy and subjectivity. So the story is narrated by a character. often the protagonist, but not always. So an example of this would be first person central. This is when the narrator of the story is the main character of the story. And an example of this would be The Hunger Games. We have Katniss Everdeen. She is the story's main character, yet she is the one who is also narrating the story. So this would be an example of a first person central. An example of first person peripheral is when, again, that narrator is using those pronouns such as I, we, my, and me. However, the narrator is not the main character of the story. And an example of this would be The Great Gatsby. We see that Gatsby, although he's the main character, he's not the narrator of the story. Instead, it's his friend Nick. So while Nick is using I, we, my, and me, we are really only perceiving Gatsby through Nick's narration. So this would be an example of that first person peripheral. The negative parts of using that first person narration is that it does offer a limited perspective. So because this point of view limits the reader, we only know what the narrator chooses to share, see, or experience. So that means that we need to ask ourselves, when we take an example like The Hunger Games, how could we understand the story differently if the perspective was told through President Snow, or if the perspective was told through Haymitch instead? We would get an entirely different reading and understanding of the story and what's going on. So an example of the first person point of view is seen in one of my favorite stories when I was in middle school, the Dork Diary series. An example of first person is often seen in diary entries. So we see here in this example, OMG, I cannot believe I'm actually going to go through with this. It's supposed to be just a little prank, but I have to admit, I'm a little worried. I really need to think about the consequences of my actions. So immediately we see how this is first person because of those pronouns to identify what point of view it's in. We see the pronoun I, we see the pronoun my. And so again, those pronouns that are indicators of the first person point of view. So whenever you are tasked with writing a diary entry, you're writing in the first person. So when your professors, going back to academic writing, when your professors are asking you to write in the third person, that means that you should refrain from using those first person pronouns, such as I. All right, so the second most common point of view is the second person. And the second person point of view is when the narrator places the reader into the story as the main character. And they accomplish this by using pronouns you and yours. It is unusual yet engaging because this rare point of view addresses the reader. So again, it directly involves you as the reader and refers to you as you. It creates a very unique reading experience and it makes the reader feel directly involved in the story. However, some negative aspects of using the second point of view in your writing is that it's very difficult to sustain throughout a longer piece of work. Again, you're trying to refer and interact with the reader throughout the entire piece of work. So it's very difficult to keep that throughout longer books and stories. So an example of the second person, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, a very good way to practice and indicate different type of point of views is using song lyrics. It's a very good way to practice and kind of perfect our point of view. So we see the second person a point of view as seen in Chappell Roan's song, Good Luck, Babe. In the bridge, she says, when you wake up next to him in the middle of the night with your head in your hands, you're nothing more than his wife. And when you think about me all of those years ago, you're standing face to face with I told you so. You know I hate to say I told you so. So as we see, or as we read in the lyrics, that the lyrics address the person or the listener to the song directly. Chappell Roan is directly placing the listener directly into that scenario. So the entire passage centers around a direct conversation with you. It maintains that second person narrative throughout the rest of the song. All right, so going on to our third most common point of view, we have third person limited. So there are two types of third person, but the first one we're getting into is third person limited. So third person limited, this point of view is when the narrator is telling the thoughts of one or a limited number of characters in the story using pronouns like he, she, or they. This type of point of view offers a limited view, similar to first person, in that the narrator focuses on the experiences, thoughts, and feelings of a single character or a few characters while remaining an external observer. So imagine a fly on the wall approach. The narrator is that fly on the wall, and they are directly telling you the series of events going on based off of what they see. You are only limited to what the narrator knows and what the narrator is telling you. This point of view also offers objectivity and formality. It helps keep the tone neutral and impartial, which is essential in academic contexts. So a lot of us who have to write essays for our classes, a lot of professors will mention on there that it needs to be in the third person. The third person is what you are more than likely going to use in all of your research essays just because of the tone that it keeps, that neutral, impartial, objective tone. It keeps you separated from what it is that you're trying to say and really keeps it research focused. So academic writing is very formal or typically formal, and third person language helps you maintain that formality throughout your essays and your works. So an example of the third person limited. So an example sentence would be, she typed on her computer furiously as she raced to jot her thoughts down. So us, as the observer, we are seeing Carrie Bradshaw typing on her computer. We are that fly on the wall that is looking directly into her, and we are describing what we are seeing. Our listeners or our reader would then only be receiving whatever it is that the narrator is trying to portray. Again, we see those pronouns, she, her. We're talking about another individual objectively, and those pronouns help identify that we are in the third person. Like I said earlier, the third person is really that point of view that applies most to academic writing. So an example of the correct way to use the third person in academic writing would be a sentence like this. Research indicates that climate change significantly affects global biodiversity. Notice how the sentence is objective and that there is no personal inclusion of the writer or narrator whatsoever. An incorrect version would be, I believe that climate change has significant effects on global biodiversity. Notice how we have that pronoun I, which signifies that it's in the first person point of view. Again, first person point of view is very personal, and it keeps us from having that objective, very informational tone that needs to be applied to academic writing. So this point of view lets us focus on the subject matter rather than the writer's perspective. So the final point of view that I want to talk about and kind of define is the third person omniscient. So we just got done talking about third person limited. Now we're talking about third person omniscient. And this type of point of view is when the narrator is outside of the story and they can switch between all the characters, again, using those pronouns, he, she, or they. Again, pronouns are going to be that main identifier of what point of view that you're going to be writing in. The good thing about using a third person omniscient point of view is that it offers a comprehensive view of the story or of the work. This means that the narrator knows everything about all the characters and the events of the story. It offers an all-knowing, omniscient perspective. This allows for a comprehensive view of the story. It offers flexibility in storytelling as well, which means that the author then has the freedom to provide background information, jump between settings and characters, offer commentary, analysis, or even foreshadowing. This is when the narrator is sharing with us everything that they know about these characters and about the plot of the story. And this is when we'll see examples of us as the reader often knowing something about the plot that maybe the character doesn't know is going to happen yet. So an example of this is seen in the show Gossip Girl. So Gossip Girl, who is this kind of omniscient character within the show, she knows everything about all the characters, knows the plot line, and is able to offer foreshadowing. And she does this in a voiceover type of, again, all-knowing type of point of view. So an example would be Gossip Girl saying to all of her listeners or followers, Serena van der Woodsen looked out over the Upper East Side skyline, wondering if she'd made the right decision. Meanwhile, Blair Waldorf is scheming with Chuck Bass, planning their next move. Little did they know, Dan Humphrey was watching them from across the street, completely unaware that his own life was about to be turned upside down. So notice how the narrator has insight into what multiple characters are doing, and even what's going to happen next, which makes it an omniscient point of view. Again, in the show, we see Gossip Girl, she's able to foreshadow, she's able to see everything and know everything about all the characters. Again, third person omniscient is an all-knowing narrator. All right, so now that I've gotten into and defined each of the point of views, I want to go into when to use it and how to use it and why you use it during this specific type of work. So The first person, as we saw in our example and kind of our definition of the first person, you will see and use first person when you are writing personal essays, diary entries, and some professional writing like resumes and cover letters. However, in your professional writing of resumes and cover letters, you are to use silent first person pronouns, which is all first person pronouns except for I. So when you are writing professionally, again, resumes and cover letters, you will use those pronouns such as me and my. You will not use that pronoun I, unless you're writing, again, diary entries or personal essays, or if your professor just flat out asks you to write in first person narration. So when we use the second person, it is most often used in creative writing. You'll see a lot of the second person used in advertising, self-help books. Again, remember, you're saying you're referring to someone, you're buying in that audience. So therefore, you should refrain from using it in a professional and academic writing type setting, because I know nothing makes a professor more angry than when they're reading an essay from an 18-year-old kid and the 18-year-old kid keeps calling them you and saying, you know this, you know that. I know that drives professors crazy. So try to refrain from using that pronoun you in your research essays. So the third person. When you use the third person, it's most commonly seen in journalism. Again, maintaining that objective, trying to keep the narrator's opinions out of the piece. You see third person used in journalism, research papers, and it refers to the subject using those pronouns like he, she, it, and they. Avoid using I or we, because again, that creates personalization, and we don't want that within the third person. It is objective information, and it keeps the narrator or the writer from not being directly involved in the topic you are writing about. Again, this is why a lot of your professors request that you write your research papers in the third person, because you, as the writer, as the researcher, you're not directly involving your opinions in the topic you're writing about. You're offering straight up research. All right, so now that I've gone into the different types of point of view, when to use them, how to use them, pronouns to help identify the point of views, let's test out your skills. So show me on your fingers, or if you're watching virtually, you can put in the chat 1, 2, or 3. I want you to identify what point of view I'm trying to show you guys. So what point of view is this in? All right, so everyone seems to agree that this is the first person. Would anyone like to tell me why the first person is correct? Would anyone like to tell me why this is the first person or why it's the correct answer? Yeah, well, yeah, so you see that pronoun I'm, and so that's that identifier that, hey, this needs to be in the first person. I'm saying I'm referring to myself. I am the narrator. No, that was awesome, good job. All right, next one. What point of view is this in? All right, yes, it's in the second point of view. Would someone like to tell me why this is in the second point of view? Uses you, yep, exactly. Again, the best way to make sure that you are writing in the correct point of view and the best way to identify the correct point of view is finding those pronouns. Those pronouns will be that identifier. And again, the pronoun you is referred to the second point of view. All right, moving on to my next test. What point of view is this in? All right, I thought I was going to trick you guys, but you guys all got it right. It is also the second point of view again. Why is this in the second point of view? Yep, exactly. That pronoun you. And notice how he's directly talking to us. He would be the narrator, we're the audience, and we are directly involved into what's going on. He's involving us in the conversation, and he's doing that by using that you pronoun. So good job. Yeah, it is the second point of view. All right, this next one should be my last one. What point of view is this in? Yeah? All right, good job. This one is in the third point of view. Why is this in the third point of view? I know there's no text, but yes, exactly. We're watching him. We are, again, third person limited. We are that fly on the wall approach, looking into it, viewing it. So we're now put in the place of the narrator. And whatever we see, you as the reader, you're getting that information from us. And we're talking about him, again, in that fly on the wall approach. So good job with my test. You all did so wonderful. So wrapping things up, point of view influences the reader's experience and engagement with your writing. So again, tying it back to the big picture, when you guys are writing essays for your professor, what point of view you write your essay in will influence your professor's reading experience and how they engage within your writing. So it's very important that you guys ask them, what point of view would you like this to be written in? So one of the most commonly asked questions that I get when talking about point of view is, can you change the point of view once you've already started writing? So there is an unspoken contract between you and your reader, and it is in that unspoken contract that you should try to stay as consistent as you can when you are writing. However, some authors do purposefully change the point of view throughout their stories as an imaginative way to enhance the reader's experience. Most authors that do this, though, already have skill and a mastered writing and point of view where they're able to use this shifting in point of view as a literary device. So you'll most commonly see this in a professor who might have one chapter of a book told through the perspective of one character, and then the next chapter, it's told through the perspective of a different character. But again, that author is kind of mastered in that skill and skillfully decided to use point of view and changing it as a way to enhance the story. But until you guys get to that point, try to stay consistent in writing in the point of view that your professors ask you to write in. So your ability to control the flow of information and emotionally engage your reader all relies on what point of view that you guys use. So thank you. That is all that I have for you guys. Do any of you have any questions for me on point of view? Was there anything that I could help clarify? Any questions, comments, concerns? I hope that you all will take something away or have something to help you guys memorize it a bit more. Maybe some of those visuals will help you guys the next time, again, your professor asks you to write in a specific point of view. So